Have you ever noticed how some people just don't get it when you're talking? Some people are not confused by you. They're committed to misunderstanding you. If you've ever found yourself explaining and then explaining your explanation and then clarifying the clarification, only to realize that halfway through that the other person completely checked out emotionally 3 sentences ago. Yeah, this one is for you. Because today we're talking about 5 ways to stop over explaining yourself to people who have already decided. What I mean is decided who you are, decided what you meant, and decided how they feel. Now, they've also decided that they're not moving an inch no matter how good you say it. Let's just get into it. Over explaining feels mature. It feels like if I can just say this one more way, then they'll finally get it. And sometimes, yeah, that kind of works, but not with these people. These people are people who interrupt you mid sentence, respond to your tone instead of what you're actually saying. They weaponize I'm just asking questions, or maybe they just nod politely while mentally building their rebuttal instead of actually listening to you. We all have these types of people, whether it be friends, family, coworkers. These people exist in our daily lives. When somebody has already decided, more information does not create clarity. It creates leverage against you. Now, I know that sounds kind of strange, right? Well, let me explain. Every extra sentence becomes something that they can twist, reframe, or use later as proof that you are dramatic or you are confusing, right? So let's talk about how we can stop participating in that particular dynamic without becoming cold, rude, or even silent. Number one, notice when explaining turns into performing. There is a moment right before over explaining kicks in where your body kind of tells you, you kind of feel it within, your voice speeds up, your sentences are more run on, they get longer and longer and longer. You start stacking examples like you're building a legal case. That is what I call performance. That's when you're performing. You're not essentially communicating, you're actually performing for who? Them. You're no longer sharing to be understood. You're more like auditioning for approval. Now, here's the key insight. People who want to understand don't need a performance. Think about what I just said. People who want to understand you do not need a performance from you. Why? They ask follow up questions. They stay present in the conversation. They don't make you feel like you're on trial. The moment you notice yourself working for their understanding, you need to pause. Now, I would suggest at this point being silent. Silence in itself is information. If they fill it in with curiosity, then great, they'll ask questions. If they fill it in with judgment, well, that's your answer. Let's move on. Number two, really, this is a big one. Stop explaining intent to people who only care about impact. Now, this one is sneaky and it's a little bit difficult to understand. When you say, that's not what I meant, and they respond with, well, that's how I heard it, suddenly you're trapped. You're trapped in the mind game that they just put you in. You're explaining intent to someone who has zero interest in it because they are only invested in how it makes them feel. Here's a hard truth. When somebody prioritizes without impact without curiosity, about intent, the conversation isn't about understanding. It's all about the C word, which is what? Control. Instead of defending your inner world, try this. Number one, acknowledge it, but only acknowledge it once. You don't need to acknowledge it multiple times, just once. Acknowledge it once, then stop. You don't need to repeatedly translate your motives to someone who has already assigned you a role. Your job is not to convince them that you're a good person. Your job is to decide whether this conversation actually deserves your energy. So remember that. Now, way number three, answer the question they asked, not the question you think they are asking. Now, let me just say this. Over explainers are mind readers in recovery. You hear a simple question, but you respond to the implied accusation underneath that question. Why did you do that? Turns into, here's my entire reasoning, my background context, my emotional state, my childhood story, my everything that backs it up. Now, pause. You just need to quit talking. Answer the actual question. Kind of like if you're on trial. You don't give a whole lot of information. You just answer the question at hand and nothing more. Nothing more. You don't have to go into this big rendition of how you arrived at this particular answer. If they want more, they'll ask more, just like an attorney. If they want more information, they'll ask more, just like a 3-year-old. Imagine that a younger child, when they come to you, they say, "Why is the sky blue?" You say, because it just is. But why? But why? But why? But why? And you keep answering until when? Until that child is satisfied. But you don't give them a whole bunch of information and go on about reflections and why the sky is actually blue. No, you answer it. The more they ask, the more you tell, and that's it. You do not offer more information. So if they want more, they'll ask more. And if they don't, you just saved yourself from donating all this unnecessary information to someone who didn't even earn it. Short answers are not evasive. People say, well, they were just so short with me. No, they're efficient. They're efficient, not evasive. Remember that. Let's move on to way number four. Let the discomfort do some of the work. So, what I mean by this is actually where most people are going to pretty much struggle because discomfort makes you over explain. Over explaining often comes with a lot of tension, and that's basically why you over explain. Silence feels somewhat awkward. And unresolved feelings feel a little bit strange, maybe a little bit heavy. They just don't make you feel good. And not being liked does not feel good. And it feels kind of maybe dangerous. So we talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. But here's pretty much what changes everything. Discomfort in the room or between the two people is not always yours to fix. So remember that. If someone feels unsettled because you didn't soften up, that doesn't mean that you need to explain it better. It means they need to sit with their reaction. When you stop over explaining, you give other people the opportunity to somewhat regulate themselves. And some people really, truly do not like that. Which brings us to way number 5. Accept that being clear will sometimes make you the villain. We have all been the villain in someone else's stories, and that's okay. And guess what? It's okay to be a villain in your own story. This is the one that nobody wants to hear. When you stop explaining, some people will label you as, you've probably heard some of these, cold, defensive, difficult, or my favorite is changed. You've changed. You've just changed. Well, maybe that's true, but people will label you as that. Maybe not because you're actually cold or defensive or difficult or even change, but because you're no longer available for manipulation through confusion. Clarity removes that little wiggle room. And people who benefited from your over explaining, they're really going to miss that version of you that they could push around, that they could guilt trip or even just exhaust. You know, those people, you have them in your life, of course. And as Mel Robbins says, let them. Just let them. You're not here to be endlessly interpretable. That is not your job. You're here to be understood by the right people. And the right people are those people that want to understand you, not the people that are making it into something that it's really not. So if you take anything away from this episode, take this. You don't need to earn understanding from people who have already made up their minds. Being certainly does not make you clearer. In fact, it makes you tired. It makes you feel exhausted. It makes you feel misunderstood. And that's what the goal of the other party is. They're trying to make you feel that way. Because remember, at the very beginning of this, I said that basically these people, it's not that they're misunderstanding you, they're committed to misunderstanding you. That's not the same thing. They're committed to misunderstanding you, but it's because you're over explaining and explaining the explanation and then clarifying the clarification. Like I said, it doesn't work because they have already committed to misunderstanding you. So it doesn't matter what you say anymore because they've already said, hey, this is how it is. They've already made their determination. So over explaining doesn't make you any clearer. It's saying what you mean and say it once. Then watch what happens. Just try that. Just try that. The next time you're in a situation where you feel like you're having to over explain and you really don't want to, or you know when you're with someone that they always do this to you, that they always do, then you can prepare for this. You know what you're going to talk about, and you're just going to say what you mean, and you're going to say it once. And then you're going to watch what happens. You're going to watch what they do. You're going to see what their reaction is. And you're going to see that these things that I'm saying ring true. You will notice it more often because the people who matter will lean into this conversation. They're the ones who, well, listen the first time. They're the ones, the friends, the coworkers, the family that you say one sentence, one statement, and they listen. And not only that, they ask you follow-up questions. They're the ones who are listening. And the ones that aren't listening, well, it doesn't matter because they're not listening anyway. They're not the ones leaning in. So try one of these 5 steps. Try any of these. These are 5 different ways that you can figure it out. That's all for today. I'm Shelby Fox, and just remember, where you are is where it's at. Bye for now.